sis, I had to stop comparing my child with his older siblings because comparison was creating pressure in me, and that pressure was going to cause me to force learning on my youngest child, which will not help the situation. I had to remind myself that all of my children are different and that they learn differently. Stopping the comparison wasn't easy, but I knew I needed to do it. So instead of comparing him to other kids, I had to think of ways to focus more on him because I knew he needed more of my attention and not me comparing him to a timeline or to a chart or to his siblings' experiences. He is different. So sis, after I stopped comparing my youngest child with his older siblings, the next thing that I did was to evaluate my consistency with him to see whether I had actually provided him with the best opportunity to learn just like I did with his older siblings. And sis, let me be honest with you. I found out that I did not. I had been neglecting my youngest son because I was focusing more on his older siblings. So his three older siblings one was in first grade, the other one was in second grade, and the other one was in fifth or sixth grade. And their courseworks were demanding. I would spend so much time preparing, so much time teaching them, answering their questions, that I didn't have enough time for my youngest son, who was about to be 2 years old at that time. There would be days that I would have no lesson plans for my youngest son. I had nothing for him to learn. For weeks, I would just be so focused on the older ones, and that was impacting my youngest son, that almost at 2 years old he had not learned the 47 sight words that his siblings had learned at that age, and that became a concern to me. But after I evaluated myself, I saw that I was the problem. I saw that I was not making time for him to learn. I saw that I did not make any preparations for him to have the same progress that his siblings had. And so I needed to change. And so I repented. There was a time I was asking myself, how can these materials that worked for his siblings will not work on him? How come these materials helped his siblings learn to read at this age, but he is not having the same progress? But it wasn't but the materials were not the problem. I was the problem. I was not providing the opportunity for him to use those materials to learn. I was not playing the videos. I was not giving him that one-on-one time to review the materials that he needed to learn, the sight words. No. So what I did was to intentionally make up my mind that I was going to play those educational videos for him every single day. And so I reduced the time that I was putting on his older siblings and shifted the attention to him. And so I will play the educational materials for him every single day, and afterwards we will review those sight words with the flashcards. And I did that every single day, and I began to see huge improvement. And also I will read the easy reader books together with him, or I will encourage him to read it by himself, and he will also read his children's Bible. I realized that once I began to give him that one-on-one attention that he needed, I saw huge improvement. The materials was not the problem. I, as the parent, was the problem because I did not give him the focus, the one-on-one attention that he needed from me to develop in that area. Okay, I don't know if it's making sense. If this is making sense, give me a thumbs up. So sis, another thing that I realized that I had stopped doing, apart from giving my son that one-on-one attention he needed, was that I had stopped giving him the encouragement and cheering him on and giving him the praises that excited him to do more work. Okay, so I did those things for his three older siblings when they were younger. When they were younger, they thrived on the praises, the hugs, the high fives, the cheering, and the hugs. The older siblings enjoyed that. It encouraged them to do more. But then at a certain age, they outgrew those things. Okay, so I stopped cheering and encouraging and shouting because they outgrew them. However, my youngest child is at that age where he also needs that cheer, or those cheers and the encouragement and the praises and the high fives. And so I realized that he thrives on those, and I needed to return to doing those gestures, the high fives, the hugs. Those things motivates him. Those things encourage him to do more work. When he traces the right letter, when he writes the right letter and I shout, "You did a good job." Oh my goodness, you could see the joy in his face and he is excited to do more. So neglecting to cheer him on and encourage him with hugs and praises impacted him, because it did not encourage him to do more. Rather, he felt bored, and he didn't want to do more schoolwork. But I realized that the more I'm implementing the cheers and the praises and the hugs, he wants to do more work on his own. It gets him excited to do more work on his own. So sis, if you've noticed that your child thrives on praises and encouragement, please don't sleep on that. Cheer them on. Give them hugs and high fives. It will motivate them to do more. And at some point they will outgrow it. But now that they are young and they need those praises, please give them as many praises as you can, okay? So sis, another thing that I noticed that I did not do that might have impacted his academic progress was that I did not provide him with his own fresh, new, and engaging materials, his own workbooks. So as I was working with him one-on-one to learn to trace and to learn to write, I realized that the workbooks that I was using for him were his siblings' old workbooks that I had bought for them when they were his age. Some of those workbooks actually had some writings inside that were done by his older siblings. And so I was surprised that I had not bought him his own workbooks. And that really showed me how much I was neglecting him, because when his siblings were his age, I used to go to Dollar Tree. At whenever I had time, I would go to the neighborhood Dollar Tree. I would buy workbooks for them. At Walmart, I would buy books. From Amazon, I would order books just to encourage them to continue to do their best in their academics. But for this youngest son, I did not do that. I was not doing that. I felt terribly bad that I had books. The books he was using were his older siblings' books. And those books, let me tell you, were not engaging. They were not fun. And he was bored using them. The first thing I did was I went to Amazon and I ordered some books from Amazon for him to use. Then I visited my neighborhood Dollar Tree, and I saw lots of workbooks for pre-K, for kindergarten kids, and I bought a whole bunch. Those books were colorful, were fun and engaging, and some of them came with stickers, and my son loves playing with stickers. And so when I brought them home, I saw that he was more excited using those new books than the old books that his siblings left for him. He is excited to write in the new books, to play with the stickers, and now he even does multiple pages at a time, because those books from Dollar Tree are so engaging and so much fun. I also realized that I was printing more worksheets for him to do from Canva, and to my surprise, he did not like working with worksheets. He didn't like worksheets. He would just do one or two and he's tired. He didn't want to do them. But once I bought those new workbooks, he will take one, he will flip through, he will do them, and then he will look through another one. He was just so much more excited. He found more joy working with workbooks than he did with the worksheets. So sis, I'm encouraging you to figure out what your child loves to work with. Is it worksheets? Is it workbooks? Make those available. And let me tell you, your neighborhood Dollar Tree has so many materials to help your toddler, to help your little ones develop, improve academically. All right. So sis, the last but not least thing that I did to help my son was to trust God. I mean, what else? What else can I do, right? What else could I have done? It's to trust God. Once I have put in the effort, became consistent, bought the materials, and giving him the one-on-one attention that he needed, all I needed to do is to give the rest to God and believe that the seeds that I've sown will yield great increase. And sis, that was what happened. Once I became consistent and followed up with him daily, I began to see a great change. By the time my last son turned 2 years old, he was reading just like his siblings did. He was reading just like his siblings did at the age of 2. I was so excited. It meant that these materials that I'm using to help teach them to read has worked for all 4 of my kids. This method, the method to teach them to read, works. And not only that, but I'm seeing a huge change in his tracing, and in writing letters. And this was an area that was very difficult for him to do, but consistency is helping him develop his fine motor skills every single day, and now his writing is getting better and better. He's excited to also do his workbooks, and now he's feeling like he's part of the homeschool. Now he's no longer left alone and without any attention, but now he's actually receiving the attention that he needs to do well academically. So sis, you've heard my own story. If your child is going through the same thing and you feel like your child is not progressing, please don't panic. Please do not become anxious, okay? Don't stress. Rather, examine what could be the problem and see the role that you yourself can play to help get your child back on track. All right? And I want you to know that the slow seasons does not mean that your child is stuck. No. It means that your child just needs a little bit more attention, a little bit more focus, or they need a change of materials, okay? I encourage you to please stay consistent and do not compare your child with their siblings or with other kids. Remember that God created us differently and every child learns differently. I encourage you to like, share, and comment. Comment in the comment section if there's any challenges that you are experiencing with your toddler. And if there's any question you have with overcoming those challenges, please put them in the comment section below. And I encourage you to please subscribe to this beautiful community. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next week. Bye.